So we are recording now. All right, everybody, welcome to our March 2024 meeting of Mallets and Manuscripts. Hannah unfortunately cannot join us. She is stuck in Texas, it sounds like. So I'm going to be running the meeting and presenting on the Joanna Bayer piece for her. But we got an awesome smattering of works today. Mackenzie, it seems like it's going to be you and me presenting. Like I can take one first, or if you want to go first and talk about kinetic energy, whatever you're feeling. So, okay. Let's see. Do you guys want to start with Jury Seo, the Bayer, or the Christopher Dean? Any spicy feelings towards one of those three to begin things? Okay, I might jump into the Dean just because I was alluding to, or no, I'm not going to jump into that. I'm going to jump into the Jury Seo because I'm still kind of figuring out how I feel about this piece. So this is the well-seasoned, I want to say the well-seasoned cast iron skillet, but it's the well-seasoned iron pan by Jury Seo, written in 2015 for Mark Eichenberger. And it's for just a cast iron skillet. Let's listen to just a little bit of this first before we jump into more about it. All right, you can see my tab, right? Okay. You guys hear that? I'm going to fast forward just a little bit here. Okay, I'm going to stop there. The more I listen to it, the more I'm kind of really captivated by it and I hear new things. Like that time, I haven't really picked up on the fact that there's that resonating pitch kind of underneath just prevailing, almost like a drone. It almost reminds me of Anvil Chorus in that way, in some ways. But what were your impressions of the well-seasoned cast iron? Not cast iron, the well-seasoned iron pan. Any initial thoughts?
I kind of liked it. I just thought it was a fun and kind of unique piece. My thought was it's obviously not trying to be some really serious academic not academic per se, but piece of music that's appeals to our very um nerdy percussion brains, but I was thinking about like if I were to hypothetically play this on like a recital with a bunch of like really serious percussion music, and my family was like in the audience, the first thing that they would say is like, I really like that piece on the frying pan that you played. That was really cool. And I just feel like there's something to be said about like, um, it's just like kind of fun. It's not, um, yeah, it was just kind of cool. I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool to listen to, you know.
Yeah. Your comment about like what your family would say reminds me of have you guys read this any parts of the Steve Schick book, The Percussionist's Art or whatever it is? And he talks about like in the very beginning playing to the earth and how folks would like specifically want to come talk to him about that because it's like a object that they can recognize and identify with. I think this kind of has that same power in that it's like, oh, cool. I have like 4 of those in my kitchen over there, you know, various sizes. So there's, or like at home, you know, whatever it is, if you're playing this in the recital hall. I think it kind of does appeal to the nerdy percussionist though, because I think there's almost like an element of like rudimental drumming to this that's like sick, like fast chops. So I think it has like a very broad appeal as a like solo percussion work. Um, yeah. So anybody else, any other impressions or thoughts?
I have something to say.
Yeah.
In terms of like, I'm speaking from my current situation right now where I'm in composition school, but I am a percussionist. And so I'm really looking for pieces that can fit in my apartment. And so this like totally fits exactly the need. And I know sometimes like an 8 or 9 minute piece is a drawback, but for me personally, like I'm not going to go out and perform this unless maybe I do like a recital of some collected like pocket percussion piece works or something. But like it really fills the need of like I need something that's like somewhat challenging, that is very small, that I can do in my apartment and still get a lot out of in terms of like keeping myself alive as a player and also my brain active as a composer. So
Yeah.
in that specific, hyper specific niche, it is like really fun to play too because of the sounds and the things. It reminds me of like that Alvin Lucier piece, Silver Streetcar for the Orchestra, which is a triangle solo where you have to like hit like you have to, it's basically just a triangle solo where you just hit like 16th notes and then you have to manipulate the triangle and touch it and do it in different ways so the sound like changes. You get like harmonics, or you can like hide the sound with your hand, you can make it reverberate.
Yeah.
He's like a sound artist composer. I think he's studied with John Cage like a tiny bit.
I've never heard of that, or I've never heard of that composer or that piece, so I've written that down.
Yeah,
that sounds sick.
His big piece is this piece called I am sitting in a room, where he speaks into a microphone. I am sitting in a room. I only know this because he died like really recently, and my friend posted this.
Okay.
But he sits in a room on a stage, and he says, "I am sitting in a room." He has like this long, like speech that he says, and he records it and then plays it back through the speaker, and he just keeps doing that until it dilutes the whole thing, and it's just like this stream of like continuous sound. And part of it was supposed to be like he just wanted to see what happens if you take like a reproduction of a reproduction of a reproduction, but he also has a speech impediment. So a part of that was like the philosophy of like smoothing out his like speech impediment, which I also thought was a very human way to connect with that. So he's like a human, he has a human angle on some of these academic things, but I think, yeah, those pieces that are like pocket pieces are like so attractive to me right now. I'm like, oh, I can buy a triangle and sit in my apartment and do this for an hour, and that's like part of my research as a grad student, I guess.
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. And I think this piece is challenging from like not only the technique required from the performer, but just like being able to get all of the different sounds that are in the score. I haven't purchased the score yet. I intend to because I think I might want to play this, but just like the scraping along the sides and like flipping it over, hitting the handle. It looks like the performer in this that he has like almost like a resonating like metal plate underneath too, which is, and it's mic'd. So I'm like, okay, there's a lot of thought that has to go into like making this sound a certain way. Yeah. There is like a score excerpt posted on Jury's website where you can go and purchase it. And it specifically calls for a large 8-inch cast iron skillet. So talking about specific mixing bowls and cast iron skillets to use for your pieces. But I'm sure that is more than negotiable. But it's very detailed in its notation and looks very kind of straightforward. Jury's music is, I like I was telling Craig V, I've only really read through VV, the vibraphone duet. And some of the rhythms in that are like really hard to just visualize. But once you figure it out, it's like, oh, 1E, I got it, but they're very like intentionally written, which I really like about her music. So yeah. Any other thoughts, comments?
Yeah, just I have played a lot of Jury's pieces and I enjoy that she is super specific and detailed in the score, but I also like that like once you hear it, like she has all of these online. So once you hear it, it clicks because I've played VV and there's one section I remember being like, what is this? How do I read this? How do I play it? But then I was like listening to it and I was like, oh, that's how she's written it out. She's super meticulous about like what she wants, but it's also kind of intuitive, which is super fun. And all of her pieces are great and they look super fun and like audience connects with them, but they're also super technical. Like if you've played wah, she wants you to turn the mallet a specific way and then you turn the wah tube a specific way and open and close the like hole, and it's super technical, so it like scratches that percussion itch, but it also the audience absolutely loves it because you're making really cool boops and bops. And I don't know if you guys know the story of why she writes these like suitcase, like super small pieces. Her husband, Mark, who's the performer in that one, he percussionist, obviously, she's a pianist. And so when they were like starting out and dating and stuff, she would get super frustrated that he was always packing up all this gear and like taking forever and they couldn't just go to the bar hangs. She's like, I'm gonna write pieces where you just pick up the cast iron skillet and walk out and there's nothing else to it because I want us to go to the bar and like hang out and like not have to wait for you to pack all this shit up.
Those are the kind of priorities that I need.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that comment though on like the visual aspect of her pieces too, because like back to VV, like it's two people on each like dueling vibraphones. Like there's that, whoa, I've seen people share marimba before. That seems intuitive. This is like, how do you negotiate that small of a space? And for this piece, I mean, yeah, Mark also gets dressed up and everything, and that's not notated in the score specifically, but like there's something powerful and like humorous about it that's again has like a human element to it and a certainly visual element. So yeah, I find it the more I engage in this piece and the more I engage in Jury's music, I'm like, well, I really like this. There was one other sort of comparison, just talking about like the smaller pocket pieces, if you will, and like the exploration of like how much you can do with one thing. There's a Sarah Henney's piece, I think Psalm 1 or maybe it was Psalm 9 for like woodblock, that if you guys don't know this one, you should check that out because it's literally just like constant, I think, eighth notes or sixteenths, and you just like slowly turn and move this woodblock, and it's pretty short, but it's a really like thought-provoking experiment and like piece of music. So yeah. Cool. Yeah, great piece of music. We'll be purchasing that one. So great. Well, we can move on unless anybody else has anything else to say. So Mackenzie, do you want to go next or I can? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I brought Patricia Isla's piece, and she has a book momentum that has like I think it's 10 or 12, maybe it's 10 solos for 2 mallets. And then we were talking about how Ziskovich and then Gene Kaczynski are like the 2 like standard 2 mallet technique books for students, which we all know the problems with those people. So not going to go into that. But it's good to have representation and have women having like our technique books, so we don't see a lot of those used. And Patricia's solos are super fun and energetic. Let's see if I can figure out how to share my screen.
I have the kinetic energy video
great.
pulled up on mine if you want me to play it.
Yes, that'd be
So,
lovely.
cool. And you could just tell me when and where you would like me to begin the recording. We can go from the top if you want. We could also do as much as you want to. So
It's super short, so do you want to listen to the whole thing?
I would love that.
Okay, let's do that.
Yes.
Yes,
So
that little
good.
tag at the end, just perfect. Love it. Yeah. So I absolutely love this piece. I think I discovered it a couple years ago for an audition. I was taking the Radio City Music Hall audition for the Rock End show, and they were like, "We want something that's super fun and like exciting," but I didn't want to do 4 mallets because everyone else was going to be there. They're going to play a box solo or something. So I was researching these. I didn't end up playing this. I ended up playing a xylophone solo because that was just easier. But I fell down this rabbit hole and fell in love with her pieces. I love that this one specifically has the melody in the left hand to begin with, and then it switches to the right hand, and you're like have these constant motions. So if you're teaching it as like a technique solo, you can have the kids, they're learning with both hands. Like the melody doesn't just have to be the right hand, which is what a lot of solos will have. Yeah, and then the tag at the end is just like a little flourish, which is exciting. Anyone have any impressions, thoughts?
I just love the book as well. Like what the amazing part, like pedagogically from Momentum, is that like what you hear in the solos is like you practice that before you even get to that point. However, I mean, you can jump around. Like I had a student do a couple of exercises or pages out of the book and then play the first solo, which is point of reference, which is much easier, but still in like the same vein and like vibe, and it's great. So there's just like so much, to your point, even about the Bach thing, like the trading voices, like the counterpoint within this solo, it's unlike Bach, but fills the like thing that you're supposed to get out of playing Bach on marimba, you know, while being like more fun and groovy and like probably easier to memorize and less stressful and less opinionated. Like, yeah, I love it. This is also like a great recital piece for any level, like graduate, undergraduate, like really advanced high schooler. Like I could see this, a lot of her pieces being put on like a concert stage, and just it's like, dang, like she just threw down. So anyway.
Yeah, and when she's playing it, like all of her videos, you can see like her facial expression. She's super into it. She's having a good time. So like, why wouldn't you have a good time when you're learning it?
There's also and do you have Momentum, the book as well, Mackenzie?
I do not. Just it's on my list. It's the next
Gotcha.
purchase. I'm so excited
There's,
about it.
and I know that Patricia's background, she's did drum corps.
Mhm.
And I think even like the exercises in her book, because Lewis mentioned the book several months ago, and I was like, oh, I need to know about this, so I bought it. But there's there's like an element of her writing and the exercises that also kind of bridge like percussion education and like marching percussion, marching arts percussion education in a
Mhm.
really thoughtful and like meaningful way, that I like find very inspiring as an educator, because I'm like, how do these two make sense together sometimes? So and I think like some of her like language, harmonic language in her solos too is kind of in that same vein, or like uh, bridges that divide that's sometimes there. Yeah.
Yeah, that there's a section where she's doing, it's not octaves because it's hand to hand, but she's like switching between the black and white keys and back and forth, and then like they line up. That's totally like, when I see that, I'm like, that's marching band. But you totally would use that in like a percussion ensemble setting or anywhere else, but you don't develop those techniques outside of like marching band exercises. So I think that another like great bridge you can see and use that in other settings. And she has a new piece, or a relatively new piece, that honors Christopher Dean because she studied with him, and it was commissioned for like his memorial concert, I think, and which is also super fun. It's a bit longer. Like the nice thing about these is you can play like, I don't know, you play all 10 of them and still have like plenty of time to play other stuff. But they're like 3-4 minutes tops. But that one's a little longer, which is exciting.
Yeah, I just saw that on Instagram. I can't remember who was. Was it Patricia that was playing it or somebody else? I can't
I
remember.
can't remember. Yeah.
But yeah, and the harmonic language on that is still what we just heard, but
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more like Christopher Dean harmonic language, which I'm
Yeah.
like, I want to play that piece so bad. Yeah. No, I think this is like her book, and this collection of stuff is like a really important moment to pivot away from like Zivkovich, especially because again, his stuff is like, I understand why it was used, but it's like he's a horrible person. I don't care if he watches this, he won't, but you know. Yeah.
I'll say also that I'll throw Gene under the bus and just keep running him over. He has a 2 mallet book. It's fine. I'm not a huge Gene Kaczynski fan of him personally or of his music. So it's great to just keep pushing those people out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, Clay, I know you played like 2 of his 2 mallet charts. I like his stuff. I've also found like kind of hard to read. Um, and like I know, there's like an intention behind notating like rhythm, especially like a certain way, but I'm also like, you could have written that 3 times like easy in a way that's like 3 times easier to read. But um, yeah. And Patricia's music, I think, has like a certain amount of accessibility that is like not like it is mostly scalar, right? Or
Mhm.
like parallel motion versus something kind of just like batty.
Yeah, I'm not. This is my first time hearing anything from Patricia, so I liked it. I think it's. I definitely agree that it does like fill a gap or kind of a niche, and it's like accessible and approachable. It doesn't sound super like out there, but it's also you can definitely tell that there's like things that would be challenging for like any student to work on, especially someone that's like developing technique. Like there's a lot of like you said, very scalar runs and some difficult voicing challenges, and then also just like making it groove, right? Like it's very syncopated, and like that main theme that's in like 7/8, I can imagine that being kind of challenging for a younger student to kind of like grasp that and make that feel good to play. So it's like, um, yeah, I definitely agree. It's like very good. I don't know. I don't have a better word, but yeah, I liked it.
There's another part of the accessibility piece in that like this fits on a 4 1/3. Like I think all of her solos do, and some of them, like all of her method book, like fits on this monstrosity of a vibraphone. Um, like it all fits on a 3 octave instrument, or there's like she gives you ways to like make it fit on your instrument because like you can work through this with high school students that maybe only have access to XYZ. But then I think even some of her, I don't know if the solos in the back of the book also fit on like I'm sure she would tell you if it fits on like a vibraphone or something, but that's one thing I again just from an accessibility standpoint, or you're out of college and like Clay, what do you own? You own a 4 1/3 octave Malletech, right? So like this would be a really cool thing. Like these solos could be like a great thing for you to work on 2 mallet chops after like post school, which is awesome. There's also the Ivan has a collection of duets for like 4 1/3 octave marimbas. Um, and those are actually really cool. I've bought that collection. Should probably present on that at some point. But and there are moments where you can switch that to vibraphone too, which is again like all for like giving people easier things to do that don't require um a instrument that won't even fit in this room. So yeah. I'm so glad you brought this piece. It's great. So yeah.
Every time I come to one of these meetings, I have like 5 new composers to like check out now, or like 5 new books. So I'm gonna have to buy that book when I have a little extra money.
Yeah. It's great. I can well, yeah, I can show it to you if you ever come through
Hmm.
here. Or
Yeah.
if for some reason you're in the Carolinas in the future.
Well, I may be in the Carolinas
I know.
relatively soon. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, cool. Anything else, Mackenzie? Do you have any other like thoughts or cool? Why don't we keep well, I'm gonna say we're gonna keep the 2 mallet train rolling. But Greg Bayer is gonna play this with 4 mallets, which shocked me. So let's talk about the Christopher Dean chart next. So this is almost perpetual torque. Uh, had any of you, and Clay, I know you knew this chart because you saw me play it and probably heard me talk about it constantly. Do you guys know this piece at all? So it was a trio written for Susan Powell. And it says on this score that it was written for the Ohio State University Percussion Ensemble, and that's not true. It was written for the Shiraz Trio, which was Scott Herring, Susan Powell, and Joe Krieger, and they premiered it at her PASIC concert in 2011. which the score and the program notes also say was written and performed in 2012, which is wrong. So, C. Allen, if you were watching this, you got to fix that. So Dr. Powell, Susan, I need to get used to doing that. She commissioned a bunch of works for solo xylophone or xylophone and accompaniment that were outside of the like novelty ragtime idiom for a PASIC showcase concert in 2011. To my knowledge, this is the only one that has been published out of like that series of commissions. Christopher Dean did it for free. Oh, can you guys hear me, by the way? It says my network connection is gone. Uh-oh. All right. That was weird. Sorry. Anyway, he did this completely for free. I found out like after his passing and everything, she was like, yeah, he didn't charge me a dime, which is like bonkers because it's a really cool piece. But the idea, and I'm just going to read a little bit of the program notes. Let's see. Though not a strict variation form, this composition does have a similar structure in that there are a series of variation-like character studies for the xylophone that are accompanied by the vibraphone and marimba, intertwined in patterns that seem to constantly spiral either upward or downward, as if in a constant state of tension or torque. So the piece was premiered in 2011. Dr. Powell said she got it like 2 weeks before the PASIC show. And the version that has been published is highly edited. It's a lot easier. I've seen the original version. It is really hard. Just a lot more notes and a lot more like complicated rhythms. So Christopher Dean kind of shelved it after he finished it, didn't really touch it. Dr. Powell never played it again. And then Greg Bayer was like, hey, this piece is amazing. You really need to like put it out there. So Dean credits Greg Bayer for kind of getting it to this point and getting it out in the public sphere. So Greg Bayer has played it quite a lot. And I think he has like a sort of like polished, not that this recording isn't polished, it's very good, but he has like a professional, that's the term, recording that's supposed to come out sometime. I think it's been like ready for quite a while. But yeah, so be on the lookout for that. Yeah. So the idea of the piece is this concept of torque. Let's just listen for a second here. I won't play all of it. So it's pretty long. This is at UNT. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I will say one thing. Uh, Greg takes a lot of creative liberties, changes some things around just based on the score, which is cool. I think what he does is like very much in the spirit of the piece and like is effective. Sometimes it's just a ritardando kind of floating over top the accompaniment, but yeah, I could I have a lot I could say about this piece because I wrote about it. But what do you guys like? What do you hear? What do you think? Impressions about like, does this work as a trio? It's kind of weird. Anything?
I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
I like was not expecting. The other Christopher Dean piece we looked at was the Robe of Fire.
Yeah. Robe of Orange Flame, the Thundersheet one. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he has such a great imagination, um, for like texture and sound. So I'm glad that it's not just like a mallet trio. It's like a mallet trio with like a lot of imagination in like what a mallet trio can be, while still remaining very much like in the idiomatic, playable realm. Just that opening alone is like very creative, I thought.
Yeah. Um, on that note, like true to Christopher Dean's like compositional philosophy, he just comes up with one idea. He has like a couple of ideas and just kind of spins it out as far as it can go. And the idea in this piece is whole tone transposition. And that's literally it. It's like whole tone scales and whole tone transposition. Um, so I'll show you the score a little bit here. Um, so here's that opening, and if you follow along all the way up, it's a whole tone scale, and literally every single part is moving up and then back down and constantly ascending. And I think there's something about like the symmetry of a whole tone scale that aligns with that idea of torque. Now, this is where things get kind of interesting. It's in 9/8, right? The accompaniment is like very clearly outlining that pulse, but then the xylophone soloist is actually, it's still in 9/8 and beamed in 9/8, but it's in groups of 8/8 notes. So feeling this and like metronomically lining up is like pretty hard. So it's almost like you're floating on top. But if we look at that, it's literally the same thing, the same exact whole tone transposition down one step. Yeah, it's like fascinating. Like, oh, here's like one lick. Like, oh, I really like the sound of that, and now I just want to move down the instrument. And oh, I just shifted down a whole step like the whole time. I'm like, oh, great. Now I can like just figure out a sticking, and it's a little bit easier to learn that way. And even talking to Dr. Powell, she's like, yeah, I have no idea like what's going on here. And I was like, it's way easier than what it looks like, I promise. Yeah, as I alluded to, I played this entire thing with two mallets. And it's definitely doable that way. And I kind of think it's more of in the spirit of like what Susan was going for, was like advocating for like more serious like two mallet rep. But there's nothing wrong with playing with four sticks. I mean, do whatever you want, whatever works for you, playing wise. Yeah. Um, anything else?
I think it also reminds me of Pattern Transformation by Lucas Ligeti a little bit. I don't know if anyone knows that piece. It's like one of my favorite pieces, but
It's like a marimba quartet, right?
it's a marimba quartet on two marimbas. Yeah,
Yeah, Hannah showed me that piece. It's really cool.
it's like getting lost the piece, but it's really hard to play. But it's cool. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
like the one, like a Third Coast has a video on Big Vertically, but it's like one thing and then it forms up. Like every half step, like it's like a set like 18 note lick, and then it just transforms up, and they all start at different times, and so then it like clashes. And
Yeah.
that reminded me of this, where it was like the same thing, but it's like moving around,
Yeah.
same twistiness.
And I really like that chart. It's cool. I need to listen to that again. One of the challenges with this Christopher Dean chart is finding a mallet that actually works because it's written for 4-octave xylo. You can play it on a like a standard low F1. Also, there's like different notes you can use, but because you have to go so high, it's such a soft dynamic, all the way down to like that low C. It gets pretty tricky. So it's like really challenging for the soloist or the xylophone player to find something that works. So I use those like covered Anders Ostrand IP xylo mallets. But even then, those are like kind of hard. So I kind of want to play it with like a really hard vibe mallet that can give like a little bit more cushion in the lower end of the instrument. But I don't know. I want to play this piece again so bad just because my recital recording's like okay, but selfishly I want to play it again. So yeah, there's a couple of misprints in the score. So if anybody ever ends up playing it, let me know and I can send those your way, as well as some fire stickings that'll save your life. Yeah. The accompaniment isn't too bad either. Again, it's like mostly whole tone stuff, but they can get like pretty freaked out by like what's going on in the soloist part. So it's kind of like y'all do your thing and like chug along and just whatever happens, happens. So yeah. Cool. Thanks for letting me share this one. It's again like a piece that's kind of near and dear to my heart. So I'm always happy to talk about Dean's music. But this one specific, I was like, cool. I don't know many people that have played it. Or yeah, I know I've played it. I know Greg Bayer plays it. So hopefully this will get more people to do it. So trying to think if there's anything more to say about that chart. I don't think so. So maybe we jump into another Bayer here. Bayer. Anyway, let's listen to 4. I'm just going to play this whole thing because this one is also a short piece. Do you guys, have you heard this piece before? I heard it at the OSU Percussion Festival in 2022, I think it was, Clay. Whichever one we did right before I graduated, a high school group played it, and it was really cool. So this was Hannah's contribution, so I'm going to talk a little bit about it after we listen just for a second here. just noticed that that's a Smirnoff ice bottle. That kills me.
I thought it was about to fall off the foam.
Oh my God. Yeah, so I have a couple of notes from Hannah about this piece, and about the composer. So this was her only work that was published during her lifetime. I had no idea. Her music since has been published by Frog Peak Music, so she does have more percussion works that are available now. And Hannah notes that it seems like this piece might be influenced by gamelan, and might make sense given the composer's relationship to like being friends with Lou Harrison, apparently. So I did not know that. Hannah says that she thinks that there are hints of minimalism in it, and the rhythms definitely seem like very easy, but the phrasing and like the interplay of the group make this kind of like a more challenging work. I think when I saw this performed, someone conducted it. I don't really get a sense that it needs that, but I guess if you're working with high schoolers, like fine. But yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, rewatching it again, I was definitely thinking about it from like playing it from the perspective of like playing it for a high school group, obviously because I'm like with a high school right now, and I feel like it like the big challenge that I've like had with programming at a high school level is like finding music that obviously A is like approachable, like from a technical perspective, but also B isn't boring and lame. Unfortunately, like those two that Venn diagram does not really overlap that much. But I feel like this fits pretty well in there, and I think it also shows off the more kind of experimental textural part of percussion ensemble that I think is really unique to what we kind of do. Like that, like you said, Lou Harrison or John Cage kind of vibe. Um, and it definitely provides a lot of like ensemble challenges, like with the accelerando and retardando, the stuff that happens. Like I think having him set up in that circle like really makes it so that you wouldn't need a conductor necessarily. Obviously, it would take a lot of work to make that work, but um yeah, that was kind of the first thing I thought of is like I think this would definitely work with the percussion group, especially like it seems like the rhythm on the individual parts doesn't seem too challenging, probably like fairly approachable. And so a lot of the work would just be putting into like making good sounds with those rhythms and then making it work as like an ensemble piece. Yeah.
Just doing a quick Google. Apparently the instrumentation is let's see. The playing surfaces are to be chosen by the um performers or like the director, I guess that's what Wikipedia says. Um which I think is like really cool, and I think a great exercise for like a younger group of players that or anybody tackling this piece is like how do you select sounds for it, given the interplay. And I think the LSU recording is like fantastic on that note, especially like, and this is like things that all of us are like, oh wow, I really like the sound of that snare drum and the field drum, like how they're related. But for like a kid, they would just like grab something and use it. And I'm like, no, this is like an exercise and like go around the band room, like think hard, tap on something and say, does that fit? Could that fit what I'm going for? And like grab it and try things out, which like pedagogically is just as important for us to like teach kids about. It's like, how do you pick the right sound? How do you pick the right drum? How do you pick the right Glocken or triangle?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That, so actually speaking to that, I actually have a piece on like the high school concert I'm working on right now. It's called like bulk trash. It's just like a piece where it's just like high, middle, low, and you can have as many people on either part as you want. And it's just like that where it's very open instrumentation. And when I gave the piece to them, I was like, okay, go home, find a piece of junk that is like kind of high pitched, kind of low pitched, or kind of middle pitched, and bring that in. And we'll just like have this fun piece where we're all playing out a bunch of junk together. And a lot of them did do that. And then other people on the first rehearsal, they just like pulled over a chair from the band room. They're like, "This is my instrument now." I'm like, I'm not going to tell you no, but could you put a little more thought into it? And like, there are definitely people who like tried to like find a fitting instrument, but then it is hard to like be like, okay, what do you like, go around your home and find something that you think would work, like put a bit of thought into what you're going to play on outside of like, I'm going to sit down and play on the floor. Like, I don't know, I guess mild venting, but yeah, I see. Yeah, I like that for this piece too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I also like the contrast between like I'm going to call them the drum parts, even though that's like just what they chose to use, but like the resonating sounds versus the more rhythmic stuff. Very cool.
I'm interested to know more about this composer. Never heard of her.
So she's German. She was born in this says 1888, and died in 1944. And so she had to be like writing all of her percussion music. Like she's like a contemporary of like John Cage and Lou Harrison and all these people that we glorify.
Yeah.
And this piece, like I had heard about prior to knowing more about her, but it is like one of the earlier percussion ensemble works out there, but it doesn't, I don't think, get nearly as much attention as ionization or
Like
what is it?
Rhythmicus.
Yeah, or the Rhythmicas or October Mountain or whatever else, which I'm saying all these piece names, and I'm pretty sure that LSU has like recordings of all of them on their YouTube, which is great. Yeah, I mean, here, I'll post her Wikipedia entry in the chat because we love Wikipedia, or I do at least. But yeah.
I think I am looking at her string quartet, and it looks also like sort of minimalist, like Hannah mentioned in the little blurb you read,
Mhm.
which I think is very interesting because definitely around this time that was not a thing that people were vibing with. Like it looks almost like proto John Adams or something. Like, but it's from like the 1940s, which is insane.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I'm gonna need to do some more research. This is like really interesting to me.
Yeah, I think I might have more of her scores in my library beyond Ford. I have percussion opus 14, the waltz, 3 movements for percussion, and her percussion suite. So, oh, and she wrote a march for 30 percussion instruments.
Whoa.
Yeah. Here I can you guys want to see the score? It's like wild.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah. The Free Library of Philadelphia, Edwin A. Yeah, yep. So I mean, yeah, like that notation is, I mean, it's very clear. Look at that. That's wild. Let's see if we can dissect what the instrumentation is. So you got triangle, 1, 2, 3, high pitched metal bowl, it looks like. China woodblock 1, 2, and 3, rice bowl 1, 2, 3, and 4. Several, like one tambourine, several tom toms, cymbals, anvils, temple gongs, gong, snare drum, bass drum, thunder sheet, and lion's roar. Massive, dense piece of music, but it's literally just like 3 pages long. Yeah, fascinating. me see. I've got more of her stuff. 3 movements for percussion to John Cage. So yeah, contemporaries with John Cage. Again, these are all like, I'm not sure if these are what you would get if you would purchase this from the publisher now. Triangle, woodblock, tambourine, snare drum, high timpani. Does it say log? I can't read that. Oh no, low timpani. And then song. So I guess someone is singing. Interesting. Yeah.
I think it's gong with like a lowercase g. That's
You were so right.
I thought that too though when I first saw it.
That's me every time I read an S, someone being like, is that a G? I wish I was kidding. Yeah, I feel like I need to do more research and like homework on her music too. I'm curious if she's not in this, I should probably nominate her, but like I wonder if she's in the PAS Hall of Fame in like the same class as. No, she is not a member of the PAS Hall of Fame. That is a travesty. If you believe in PAS, which sometimes I do. But certainly PAS believes in glorifying like the earliest contributors to the percussion ensemble repertoire, and the fact that she is not in there is horrible. So yeah, BRB are gonna go nominate her if it hasn't already been done. Yeah, I need to. Yeah, maybe we should just have like a day where we listen to her music and just talk about that.
We totally should. Waltz. I love Waltz. It's a great piece.
Okay, we'll look at the score for that too.
I think it's a quintet. There might be 5 or 6 players. That one was my first introduction to like 5/4 and 6/5/4. Like everyone's playing in like this different kind of meter, but then it kind of lines up. It's wild.
It's an octet.
Octet.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool. Yeah. So that's my cat crying in the background if you can hear her. Hold on one second. Get in here. Sorry, recording folks. Cat is important. See. And she wants to talk about Bayer and her music. Yeah, I'm gonna pitch that to Hannah. Hannah, we should have a discussion about more of her music and collectively all nominate her for the Hall of Fame for Percussive Arts Society. But Wikipedia definitely indicates that she was like in the like ultra modernist sort of camp. So yeah, totally makes sense. Cool. Any other thoughts about that music or like her contributions? I mean, I wish I had more to say. So she was very close friends with Henry Cowell, especially. So Libby, don't jump up there. Her music was also part of the music event and the art competition at the 1932 Summer Olympics. Huh. Wow. Interesting. I'll have to look that up. They had an arts competition at the Olympics. That's pretty wild. Should bring that back. Anyway, cool. Well, if there's nothing else, we'll be in touch about our April meeting. I got to talk to Hannah and see what that's going to look like. But Mackenzie, thank you for bringing the Patricia's work today, and Hannah, thank you for the Bayer piece. Like great stuff today. So, and Treg V and Clay, thank you for being on the call. Shout out to Chris Lyzak, who joined early to say, hey, I'm really sorry I can't be here. I have to go practice. totally understand. And thanks to y'all that are checking out the recording afterward. So I'm going to stop recording now. Yeah, great.